baby boomer generation, many of them are business owners. You sell or you close down. I saw this stat a couple weeks ago, 14 trillion with a T dollars going to change hands in the next 10 years as these baby boomers exit. Opportunity is that you're buying a business that has stood the test of time, is profitable, and has cash flow from day one that you can use to pay for the business, to pay yourself, and to grow the business, really aggressively scaling earning potential.
Welcome to the Path to Passive podcast, where we talk about building wealth and empowering lifestyle through commercial real estate investing for tech professionals. I always wish that other tech professionals reaching financial freedom had documented their journey along the way, so I'm doing it for the rest of us. Join us as we explore stories, many failures, and lessons learned along the way. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. David Hori, welcome to the show. 25 years in scaling leadership, scaled in 3 companies that exited, and you have experience across Microsoft, company Woven that was acquired by Toyota, and other companies too. And now you buy businesses for yourself after helping to scale and grow those companies. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you having me here. And dude, talk a little bit about your experience of what that was like helping these companies scale. Like, how did you get here? What is your background? What brought you to this place?
I would say before startups, I was in big corporates, right? So think one of the largest global law firms in the world doing HR for them. And I was the HR person responsible for the entire Pacific Northwest at this global law firm. Mm-hmm. And realizing that while I was working with incredibly intelligent people, law firms are not known for being innovative or moving quickly.
Yep.
And those 2 things are really important to me. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to work at smaller, faster companies. I tried Microsoft, another smaller publicly traded company. And until I got the opportunity to go into the world of VC funded startups, which I think is kind of the most high octane place you can end up if you like speed and innovation.
Yep. Yeah. And your story starts off, I was listening to some of the things that you had talked about as I was getting to know you a little bit better. And it's always interesting to hear where people start from, kind of their why. I think why is such an important thing because our beliefs, our values, our behaviors, ultimately, and the results that we get, right? And I remember hearing you talk about one of the reasons why you are finding yourself in these different places is because you had always thought about it was a money consciousness thing. How are you and your family going to pay for certain things growing up here and there, right? And I thought that was really cool because that was something that really resonated with me too. To today, ultimately, you're looking at buying businesses for yourself after helping founders grow and exit their companies. Talk to us a little bit about what this opportunity is on buying businesses. This podcast is for tech professionals and real estate investing, but you're here, and I thought it'd be really great for you to be here to talk about this opportunity to buy businesses in today's climate. What is that problem to be solved?
Absolutely. So the landscape or the backdrop for this is the reality that the baby boomer generation, many of them are business owners, and they've spent decades building these businesses, and they're going to retire in the next 10 years, either because they want to, or they're no longer able to physically keep working these businesses. Either way. And when you start a business, a lot of people haven't thought in these terms, but there's really only 2 outcomes. You literally can either sell, or you slowly stop taking customers, you kind of scale things back, and eventually close your doors, which kind of sounds like a neutral path. It is not neutral. That costs a tremendous amount of money, it turns out, to wind things down, to try to sell off the assets, to keep paying the lease, even when you're not fully booked with clients. So you sell or you close down. And I saw this stat a couple weeks ago, 14 trillion with a T dollars going to change hands in the next 10 years as these baby boomers exit. And so again, if many of them are business owners, there's this tremendous opportunity to buy these really valuable businesses that have been built and tested over the years and are profitable. And not only an opportunity, I would say a responsibility, because what happens if we don't step in and buy these? And the reality is there's so many baby boomers and not enough buyers. Like we have to get good at this. We have to enable people. We have to educate people. And the opportunity is that you're buying a business that has stood the test of time, is profitable, and has cash flow from day one that you can use to pay for the business, to pay yourself, and to grow the business. And you don't have to do any of the stuff that I did in these crazy startups. Whereas, are we going to build something that nobody wants to buy? Right? You
Yep.
already know that. So it's just a hack in my mind, like the ultimate hack to really aggressively scaling earning potential.
Yeah, I think it's become such an obvious thing after you hear it, right? That it's like, of course. I mean, it really, to draw that parallel, because this is primarily and started out as a real estate investing podcast, which is you can go and acquire a property and put in a renter or a tenant in there as an example to bring in that cash flow, or you could go and build your own house and try to do that. But it's kind of that equivalent. It's like you said, an existing business where it already has things like customer base along with standing. So, I mean, it could be 5, 10, 15, 20 years even for these Main Street businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to talk about it and really drive it home, what were some of those challenges in a startup world that you had to really go through for those growth phases? Some of those uncertainties, I would say, like you had to go for like product market fit, try and figure that out, right? What are some of the other things? It's building a management team, which you come from a kind of a recruiter background too, right? And some of those things. What comes to mind on some of those growing pains in startups?
One of the first things that was really scary to realize in my first startup, because I was like too ignorant to be scared, right? I was like, this is all going to work out. I jumped into a startup that was selling enterprise software.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we actually didn't have a product yet, but we're pitching to Fortune 100 companies, some of the biggest enterprises on the planet,
Wow.
as potential customers. And it takes years to get through their process of buying things using kind of like this animated demo, right? This animated PowerPoint that will someday work if they give us money and then we build it right. And so, like, just that in and of itself, if I'd have known what I was getting into, I was like, that's crazy talk. Who does that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you're talking about some of the real practical challenges as well. Okay. I'm partnered with a founder who has an idea and a bunch of other people think it's a good idea. So they give him millions of dollars and now they're like, now go build it.
Right.
And so my role was to start hiring those key people around him and then start giving them processes to enable doing that work really consistently and then implementing the systems that they needed. And one of the unexpected challenges is I'm not a marketer. And I would hire this person to run marketing for the company. And I'm looking at them and saying, what do you need? And if you didn't hire the right head of marketing, they were like, I don't know. Like I've always just joined a company that had the ecosystem in place. I
Right.
guess I kind of need like a CRM. And I was like, great, which one? Oh, I don't know. And so it's literally there's some assumptions that I think kind of come in where you're like, oh yeah, I understand how marketing works, and I've got all these ideas about how I'm going to take this to market. And then you're like, which CRM do we need to implement? They're like, oh, you don't have a CRM? No. And very foundational building blocks. And so that was another challenge. And in addition to, there is always this looming what we call the well dry date, which is the
Oh,
day you run out of money.
yes. Drawing the well of cash. Yeah.
The well goes dry. You run out of money. And so, in addition to building this rocket ship that's mid flight, you're also then in the background, your other job is raising money for the next go round of survival.
Yep.
And so, you're pulled in different directions all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And day job for me is still at Amazon. One of the things I really like about that and that culture, I've been there for going on 12 years now, is that there's no compression algorithm for experience. That's something we say. So it's very similar here is you're building these systems and working with the teams to really help to drive value. That's something you've talked about is value creation, right? So let's go back to the talking about buying businesses perspective. Being able to go acquire business and stepping into being an operator for it and ultimately driving this thing. Why is it that business owners would even want to sell? right? We talked about baby boomers and wanting to retire, and maybe they don't have a succession plan where they can hand it off to their kid who's, no, dude, like TikTok and this other stuff is really cool. I live in the AI world. Why do these sellers, why do they want to sell? Why do these owners want to sell?
There's an entire spectrum of answers for that, but some of the big buckets I would kind of share
Yeah.
with you. One is like they're forced into it, and there's a few. What I say, like the three big D's, right? Like divorce, death, disease, right? You're forced into it. This wasn't the plan, but now, your partner is struggling or whatever, and you need more time, or you can't run the business, whatever that looks like. So that's one. Another one is, again, realizing that you have built this business over the years and completely missed out on hobbies, birthdays and holidays or whatever that is. And you're like, wow, the longer I go, the more important that becomes to me. And I want to be able to do more of fill in the blank. I want my time back. There are other owners that simply are just like so tired of carrying the weight on their shoulders of the business and making payroll and also selling all the jobs or whatever it is and that risk. And they just want to share it. And so bringing in somebody for a partial acquisition even allows them to remove a couple of the hats they've been wearing and focus on the thing that they enjoyed. And they're no longer doing, like the guy that likes building houses. Pretty soon it's been a decade since he's picked up a hammer, and he doesn't want to sell. He doesn't want to inspect. He doesn't want to collect. He just wants to build. And now he's selling 50% of his business to somebody that's, I'll do that stuff and you just go swing a hammer. So
Right.
those are kind of three big buckets.
Yeah. And that ultimately fills whatever that need is. And I mean, I would say another one that comes to mind is probably something like legacy too, right? That they do care about. They want to sell it off to someone that will, it's like, hey, I have all these customers. I've had these employees, and Bob and whoever have been working with me for the last 30 years. And those are a part of it too, to have, fresh eyes to come in, kind of reinvigorate the business as well.
100%. And that's one of the reasons that I try to differentiate myself from a lot of other buyers is that I'm very legacy focused. I want to preserve that. I want to take the best of it and carry it forward. And you're passing off the baton to me. There are others. I've literally talked to a business owner last week. I was like, tell me about like how important it is to ensure that your employees are taken care of or your legacy is preserved. And he's like, they're fine. They'll find other jobs. If you need to get rid of them, you can get rid of them. It's like, it doesn't like, not every business owner is like that, but I think many are.
Yeah. And people that are listening in tech, we typically are plugged into the things on LinkedIn or the newsletters or whatever about so-and-so is acquiring someone for millions or billions of dollars, right? And some of them are public companies, but private equity as well, right? You've talked about being quote unquote anti-private equity. One of my missions for the podcast too is to demystify these topics because we hear them, but may not have taken the time to study them or look at them. So could you talk about what private equity actually is? Just define it for us, and what you mean by being quote unquote anti-private equity, and how that ties into this part too about caring about these owners that you will transfer businesses and you will ultimately acquire.
Yeah, great question. So I'll probably tie this answer to something that may be more familiar. From an investment perspective, when you have millions of dollars to spend, or billions, there's kind of two ends of a barbell. One is going to be VC funded, where you're investing in early stage, probably pre-revenue companies. And this is where a lot of tech startups get their funding is VC. And it's high risk. You're assuming that most are going to fail, but one or two is going to make it and you're going to get a big payout. And a lot of companies will balance that risk on the other side of the barbell with private equity investments, where you're investing in known, established businesses for their cash flow. It's a much safer path of returns for an investor. And if you're diversifying risks, people will play in both sides of the field. Private equity, in a general sense, are these giant companies that have millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to deploy into buying businesses. And their general playbook is to buy a bunch of smaller businesses and bundle them together. And by bundling them together, suddenly you don't need a lot of the things in every single one of those businesses. You can have one marketing person when you buy three businesses instead of three. And so there's a lot of efficiency that can be gained by that. And their ultimate play is to get those efficiencies as fast as possible and then sell it to somebody else.
Yep. Roll ups. Mm-hmm.
Roll ups. Yes, exactly. That's kind of the private equity playbook. I stand kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of private equity where, yes, I'm wanting to buy businesses, but I want to hold them and grow a portfolio of those businesses. Again, taking it back to the real estate side of things, I'm more of a buy and hold investor. And I just want that consistent cash flow coming in. But mostly, I don't think that the private equity model is sustainable
Hmm.
because you're constantly turning and churning people and resources, and you don't care if you got rid of the best marketing person or not. You just need to get rid of two of them. And so it's really pretty destructive. And who you sell it to doesn't care about the legacy, the employees, the customers ultimately. They're like, how do I squeeze more money out of this? Right. And
Sure.
so that becomes the emphasis. And where I stand, my focus is, again, preserving the legacy, creating meaningful job opportunities for people in the communities that I live in. And again, fueling the economy and building a strong foundation for that. Because, what happens when somebody buys up all of the windshield repair companies in your area and you only have one option and you
Mm-hmm.
become just like this cog that gets passed through their factory of windshield repair. I like having small local options. So that's kind of why I'm kind of the opposite of big private equity.
And I know we didn't mention this earlier, but it's a key call out. You talked about the $14 trillion worth of value or these millions of small main street businesses at this point that really is. It's not just lip service, but is the backbone of the US economy. And so having those local options, having that diversity of businesses and keeping it local, is that like maybe a sub tagline or a bumper sticker
Yeah,
you might make as well?
absolutely.
And so it sounds like these are the business you want to acquire, but you also making it that parallel to real estate do want to hold for 20, 30 years. Is that about right?
Yep, exactly right.
Awesome. That makes sense because I mean, for all the reasons we just talked about. One of the things you mentioned to me before we went live here, which is I was telling you about the audience, and you just made this parallel too of businesses to real estate and the one meeting that you still like to do in person is a real estate meetup. And let's kind of expand on this here. Like I said, people listening are here for a lot of real estate, but we're expanding. Let's just walk through what, so to speak, a P&L might look like, just kind of mentally here. Like for real estate, it's pretty simple, right? We've got this property, our tenant is our income. There might be a couple other small pieces of income. What if it's a multifamily, we have parking or laundry or security deposit, stuff like that, and so forth. But what does that look like? Or how would you make some analogies or parallels for talking about the investment of real estate versus the investment of these businesses?
Yes. Love that we went here. This is exciting. So I like hanging around these real estate investors because their process for underwriting a real estate investment is very similar to the underwriting that I would do for a business. We're looking at a lot of the same things. And I am what is called a cash flow buyer. I'm looking to buy something that has the cash flow that's going to pay for that investment to continue to allow to pay me some money and
Mhm.
allow for that asset to continue growing. And so that really resonates with a lot of people that are looking to buy rentals or whatever in the real estate investing space. Now, the question is there any piece of real estate that you could buy and any kind of, if you're like in the fix and flip space, any kind of investment that you could dump back into that property to 3x the return? The answer is no. You can completely rip it down to the studs, build a beautiful mansion, but at a certain point, because of the neighborhood and the footprint and everything, it's never going to be worth 3 times as much unless you bought it pennies on the dollar. But with a business, I could buy a business that's doing 1 million and in 12 months increase revenue to 3 million.
Mm.
And so how many houses would you have to buy to cash flow for the cash flow to equal, like you're collecting rent and everything, for that to equal the cash flow you can get from a single business, which is it can be hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year. I just put an offer last week on a business that's turning around anywhere from 37 to $120,000 a month cash flow. So that's a lot of houses you would have to buy. And when I start talking about this with some of these real estate investors, they're like, whoa, yeah, I would have to buy 13 houses to equal that kind of cash flow. And then the real estate investing, again, very stable, generally investment category. But what happens then if you don't want to manage the tenants? You have to pay a property manager. Oh, your margins go down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they don't fill the tenants right away and you miss a month and a half of rent? All of a sudden, you're not even breaking even on this thing. Now, yes, the asset matures and things like that, but you don't have those same challenges. There are a bunch of other challenges with owning a business, but that is not one of them. And the fact that I can keep growing the profit margin and driving more and more revenue, adding different income streams it's hard to match.
Yeah. Let's talk about that just on a layer deeper. When you're talking about the cash flow, are you really talking about the net operating income, the cash flow, like after all expenses are paid?
Yes. Your revenue or the income coming in minus the cost of goods, which is like you actually have to pay the people that's actually turning out that service or what it costs to make the widget. And then all your expenses, what's left after that can be tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
Perfect. And so the 3x as that example of being able to, you were talking about growing it 3 times the amount. Let's talk about this, an example here, so that we can take the listener along the way with us. So you're saying that for your investment made, right, of during acquisition, you could 3x that or 3xing the business itself within 12 months.
3x the business itself. And so your investment, there's many creative ways to get into real estate, many creative ways to get into businesses, but your investment could be nearly zero or zero. But yes, you can, like, there's a couple, like, I have 10 to 12 things that are fairly, none of them are earth shattering strategies where if you're making $1 million as a business, I can find another $1 million worth of either revenue or savings in your business and implement that within a matter of months.
Hmm. Do you mind sharing any of those? Just as
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, if you're already making $1 million in revenue, one of my questions is like, when was the last time you talked to your vendors and tried to renegotiate any of your pricing? If you've ever tried to quit Netflix, suddenly they're like, wait, we want you. Come back and we'll give you this rate. You should
Yep.
be doing that all the time, but we don't. And so businesses are the same way. There's like, they get locked in there. If they set it and forget it. If you just went back to your vendors and said, hey, I like working with you, but I just got this really crazy quote. Like, I'd be stupid not to do it. What can you do?
Yes.
You automatically get some, that goes to your bottom line. Okay. Then you start looking at, okay, I've got 3 products that I sell. What happens if I tried to bundle them? Or I put in something in place where, I mean, you know this better than anybody with Amazon. It's like suggesting, hey, if you bought this, you might like this.
Oh,
So
yeah.
many businesses aren't doing those kinds of basic hygiene to drive revenue where you don't have to go out and find a new product. You just got to get it in front of them when they're in the mood to buy.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a whole checklist of things that I asked them, and I asked them to assign, like, how much effort would this take? And what do you think the dollar value is? Positioning yourself as a market leader. Like, what would it take for you to go from being in the herd of all the roofers in your area to being the top roofer? Like, you're consistently doing what you say you're going to do. That takes you to, what would that take? Okay, let's do that because now you can command a premium. And when was the last time you raised your prices? Those kinds of good hygiene, business owners are really bad at doing.
Yeah, especially if they've been operating for a long time and it's just business as usual, so to
Yeah.
speak. Right. Taking ideas from the tech world, like you're talking about, of doing things like OKRs, right? Or quarterly cadences of things, or thinking about, great, especially from the startups part of, we need to scale by this amount of people, and really thinking about scale as well, right?
Absolutely.
That's interesting. And drawing that parallel from the, really, as we're talking about this, it's a higher returns for on businesses than in real estate, especially if you're buying a house. You might get a couple $100 worth of cash flow. And sure, like you said, appreciating asset, the market mostly is going to dictate what you can do for whatever that house is or that property is. And that doesn't matter if that is self-storage, multifamily, or something else for that matter, right? You go here to the real estate meetup to, of course, it's investing in real estate, but also to look for investors as a possibility. Have you given any thought how investors would be working with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the, I would call it the thin edge of the wedge. I'm actually pitching this to a couple of the people that, again, over the months and years, I've nurtured a relationship with. They know what I'm about. They know what I've done. They've seen some of the business owners, even locally, I've been able to help, is going and buying a business that includes real estate. Now
Mm.
it's an asset backed acquisition that they're familiar with. So I'm looking at a health club right now that comes with real estate.
Mhm.
And these real estate investors get super excited because there's a play where it's, wow, it's right next door to the major regional hospital. And this is the most logical place they're going to want to expand. And they will expand at some point. This is a growing MSA. They're going to want to expand. And so even worst case scenario, the business is just kind of like meh and flat. It's going to pay for this real estate acquisition. And guess what? There's pocket space in this real estate that we could sublease out. And that goes to the bottom line, right? So I'm already got some ideas around how are we going to increase this 3x in the next 12 months that I can point to that resonates with a world that they're familiar with.
That's true. And are you looking at using SBA backed lending 7A for this acquisition? Or do
Less
you
and
guys?
less these days. There's been some crazy changes to the SBA, but that is a definite source. There's also, in the world of real estate, tons of options now that are becoming more mainstream for DSCR loans,
Mhm.
where they're just, again, looking at what is the cash flow? Okay, here's how much money we can give you. SBA's, yes, an option, DSCR loans, there's all kinds of different ways.
Okay, got it. But you can use an SBA loan, yes, for different ways buy the real estate, and you can buy them separately too. Do you have a buy box or something? What type of buy box do you have for businesses?
Yeah, great question. So my personal marketing spend is aimed at two categories. One is e-commerce, and that kind of generally makes the best use of my tech background. I'm not a coder or a developer, but I understand utilizing technology really efficiently.
Right.
So e-commerce companies that are like generating generally over $1 million in revenue and under $13 million in revenue.
Okay. So 1 to 13.
1 to 13, yeah. And that could be zero to fewer than probably 150 employees would be like that my sweet spot. The other one is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is water related. So
Hmm.
think drilling and pumps. And I have a partner that his family owns and operates the largest drilling company in our area. I'm helping him buy his family company. Then we want to go after well drilling companies and pump companies ourselves and start growing vertically. Now, if you've spent any time thinking about buying a business, you've probably run into the Cody Sanchez's of the world and et cetera that are telling you to go buy laundromats and all these things. So there's so many people that are fighting over buying an HVAC company or an electrical company, and those are like the kind of the sexy acquisitions right now. All the reasons that people want to buy, there's great reasons to buy those HVAC companies. All those apply to drilling and pumps, but it's just nobody's thinking about it. It's hard to find a third generation driller that wants to run it and can run it and has the playbook to scale it quickly. So that's the competitive advantage we have in that space. So those are my two buy boxes is e-com and water related.
Yeah. I think so. I've gone through Acquisition Lab for Walker Dybel, Mr. The one for buy then build. And I've been looking at this space for a minute as well. But one of the things that I think it is so important that was reiterated there too is it's you plus your skills, or it's your skills plus business, which makes it a success. And so you're talking about your tech background for the e-com, but then also the well drilling because of the operator, it sounds like that you're working with. So that's why that really sounds like it makes a lot of sense to go after those types of businesses versus, like you're saying, anyone to go get a laundromat or HVAC or whatever. Not if you don't have the experience. It may not be the right business for you. Right.
100%. 100%. One of my mentors just beat this into me, and I try to ignore him for almost the first year and a half that I was in the mode of buying businesses. He would say, David, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. And I'm
Yes.
like, no, I've got this horizontal skill set. Like I did SaaS, I did
Right.
residential GC, I did digital maps. I've got this horizontal skill set. But the longer I'm in this, I'm like, no, I need to focus on where can I add value. And I think that's true for investors. It's not just the operator. I'm now being more selective. Before I talked to anybody that had money that they wanted to deploy. Now I'm like, what do you bring to the table? Oh, you come from an e-commerce background or you've been in this space. And so I want you to invest in my e-com. I don't want you to like, you don't add
Mhm.
as much value to me as somebody that's helping me acquire a well company. I'm going to go after somebody that's been in the trades and has navigated those kinds of things. So I would say stay in your lane, whether you're the investor, the operator, the acquirer, etc.
Yeah, I think that's a great call too, because if you think about it, you would want your investor to understand the business they're investing in. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I would
easy to
think,
be in the armchair. Oh, if it were me, I would just double the
right.
prices. Oh, if you were in this industry, that's really hard to do or impossible or whatever.
Yeah, certainly. So we covered on a lot of stuff there. Paint us a little more of a picture. What do you think, you would love to have in or love to do in the future? What does long-term success look like for you in this space? You talked about acquiring these different businesses to build a portfolio and buy and hold. Do you ultimately want to have multiple like managers to help you with all of these portfolio companies and portcos as well? Is there a place where you think you would stop? Do you think you would buy one every 2 years and kind of stabilize them as you go? Kind of wondering what the big picture strategy is there.
Yeah, great question. So I'll tell you, my goal this year that I wrote down in big letters over here
Mhm.
is to acquire three businesses in 2026. At the time of this recording, it is March. I've got two offers out that I'm negotiating and structuring around. I'm probably going to deliver two more in the next week. I want to acquire three. The ultimate vision is I love growing businesses. I don't know if you can tell, but I get really excited. I get a lot of energy. And so I never want to be completely out of it. But I do want to be focused on the bigger strategy around how are they connected? Where are we going next? How are we going to continue to grow them? Because there's always something you can do. You can grow vertically, you can grow horizontally, you can add new product lines and things like that. That's the exciting stuff to me. And a big part of what I've been able to do for other founders is to put in place things to give them leverage so they can focus on what they do best.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to do for myself as well.
Got it. Looking to do three this year. I'm always curious in this one. I'm sure you have multiple answers for this, but the question coming from these companies and the tech background as well, what skills do you think you will be able to implement the most, or are you looking at is the most transferable?
That's a really good question. I love that question. One of the things, again, is that my skill set is understanding like, what do we need to deliver? Who can deliver that for us? And getting those people in place with the tooling and processes that they can then deliver on consistently. So that's kind of my personal, value add in the acquisition space. Now, that's one layer. Again, I mentioned one of the companies I helped scale was a company called Pro.com, which is a residential construction GC. And so I'm familiar with hiring people that deliver construction. We built an in-house electrical team. So like when I look at wells, it wasn't just that I have this amazing partner that has drilling expertise, but I also understand now, like one of the things that you hear from people that are in the trades, HVAC, electrical, construction, oh, nobody wants to work. It's so hard to find help. Like I can't, this is just a revolving door. I know how to become an employer of choice. I know how to go to the top electrical company in our city or well driller in our city, recruit away their top talent because I'm going to engage their movers, their motivators. It's not just pay them more. I'm going to make
Mhm.
sure that they are engaged and fulfilled working in our company. And we're going to create that kind of company. So that's like kind of the secret sauce that, again, personally I bring.
I think what that ultimately comes to is being able to spot great talent and also thinking about them to grow and growing them too. And there's this book, I don't know if Dan Sullivan, but it's kind of right behind me too. For anyone's watching, is about who, not how, and spotting great talent, developing them, etc. is certainly something that is very transferable. It's great to hear that, and I think that'll probably take you really far.
I love Who Not How. That's a great book.
Yeah, man. Dude, I wish we had more time to go through this, but just kind of that recap of the opportunity of of businesses changing hands, Main Street businesses. It's out there called Silver Tsunami. And it's great to hear you acquiring businesses and coming from the space many of our listeners are part of as well, especially having been in startup space and scaling. There are growing pains. And I just want to emphasize again, like it's very different to try and build a product, right? And take it to market, doing those pitches where it wasn't even built yet, but you're like, this is what we could do to actually working with people to deliver it versus going to buy something already cash flowing. So outstanding. I got to ask, because what advice or what would you say to younger self, right? Who was thinking about how are we going to pay for things growing up and looking around, and you were aware of things that costed, and I had to figure out how to make more and how to really be sustainable for yourself, et cetera. Do you ever think that, did he ever think that you'd be here talking about buying businesses and, and being on a podcast and investing?
No, never, never would have thought that. The way I grew up is that you were going to go work for some big stable employer and climb the ladder. And that was how were going to develop wealth. And so my advice would be look at the people who have actually built the kind of wealth that you want, not just that lives in a comfortable lifestyle, but has built that kind of ability to do whatever they want with their time and pursue things because they have an interest and a skill set, not because of what it pays. And that would lead you to some different ideas. And there's a number of books that I would suggest to myself, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of those big foundational things where I'm just like, where was this when I was growing up? And how come nobody else is talking about this in this tiny town that I grew up in? And I thought that the only way to out of here was to go to college and more education. And so some of those things are what I share with young people today is like, unless you know exactly what you want to do and you know that requires some kind of formal education, go work. You can absolutely validate these and experiment with, I don't know, I like animals. Well, then go volunteer at a vet clinic. Like you can go hang out with them. You're like, oh, actually, I don't like dealing with sick animals. I like dealing with healthy animals. Oh, then you can go volunteer at the horse corral. And that there's so many different ways that you can get paid to validate those things and start to figure out where do I fit into this world? And then again, look at who's doing really well in that space. I remember when I was at Microsoft, one of my coworkers introduced me to their significant other. I'm feeling pretty cool. I'm at Microsoft. And I was like, what do you do? And he's, I like boats. I was like, you like boats? Okay, what else? He's like, no, I'm always tinkering on boats. I was like, good luck making it anywhere. Today, he gets to go anywhere in the world that has water, and he has the blank check opportunity because he can fix any person's yacht.
Nice.
And they will. They'll say, come with me for 9 months to Barbados. He's like, Barbados sounds good. And when he's done with Barbados, he's like, I think in Fiji. So he goes to Fiji, like literally anywhere, and they'll pay him whatever just so he's there. And I'm like, there's a certain point is go figure out what you're supposed to do, and it gives you energy, and then go look at who's doing it at a really high level.
Yeah. And go and model. Follow your curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
David, great to have you here, my friend. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they connect with you? Up to?
I'm super active on Instagram, and you can find me under Top Line Operators or Top Line Ops for short, TOPLINEOPS. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, David Hori. And if anybody's out there that's a listener and a business owner, because I know you mostly have a lot of tech people and stuff, but business owner, I am also doing a weekly webinar, and hopefully that's okay to plug here, but it's for business owners that know that they want to sell at some point and they just don't know where to start. And I just kind of shed some light on here's the topography of the starting line so that you're more informed. It's free. It happens every Thursday. And so I can also share that link with you, Steven.
Yeah, that's a great call. If you're thinking about exiting and you want to know what needs to be put together, how to prepare for it, very important to work with someone so you can package that correctly. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. All those links will be in the show notes. Go check out David and his links, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Steven.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Path to Passive. We love connecting with our listeners and those on the path to architecting their wealth and improving their lives. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future episodes. Get in touch with us through email or Instagram. See you next week for a new episode.